Strength Warehouse presents Go Heavy or Go Home podcast. I am your host, Nate Boley. In this podcast, we talk about strength, fitness, nutrition, and all things Strength Warehouse related. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Today I have one of our coaches, JR, here, and I'm going to just let him introduce himself. So what's up, JR? How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. My name's JR, new coach here at Strength Warehouse. I also work next door at the boxing studio. I do online coaching, so yeah, a little bit of everything.
All right, that's awesome. What do you do specifically here?
Specifically here, I run group classes. I run the morning classes at 7 a.m. and some of the evening classes, as well as some of the personal training.
Nice. And you do some on-ramps as well and stuff like that?
Yeah, on-ramps, getting people, familiar with the gym with their first couple sessions, through our on-ramp sessions, as well as,
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's just go back in, what does your fitness journey look like? I know you've had some road bumps and stuff like that, but just let's start back in the beginning. What got you into fitness?
Been playing sports since the age of 4. Started with Taekwondo, karate, got into combat sports, a little MMA, Muay Thai. Played football all through, Pop Warner, high school, track and field, so kind of did the whole athlete thing.
Yeah, you did everything.
Yeah. Had a few big surgeries, kidney transplant being the biggest one that, as we've talked about, kind of pushed me from the athlete to the coaching side. And being the fact that sports have always been a huge part of my life, I figured just kind of keep that going, and really got into coaching and the ins and outs of biomechanics, anatomy, really understanding how the body moves, how it works. Just trying to be a better trainer. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's super bummer, man, that when something like that happens and you just get completely ripped out of whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah.
But you took it in stride and you're still doing stuff that, that you've grew a new passion for new stuff.
Yeah, gotta kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah.
And I've definitely gotten used to that. So.
Yeah. You just gotta roll with the punches.
Yeah,
you try to resist them, you just get beat up more.
Yeah, exactly. So just keep pushing and do what you gotta do. I think everyone's got problems. But,
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So what kind of stuff do you do now? More strength stuff, bodybuilding stuff?
Being that I'm here, I really got super into barbell lifting, the big 3, squat, bench, and dead. Took a few certs on that to really kind of get better understanding. Wanted to get in a powerlifting gym to really just get my experience up on that end. And so right now we're focusing on strength training, hypertrophy. Taking a course right now on hypertrophy. Just finished one on sports performance nutrition. So really trying to optimize nutrition for people who are actually performing in sports and stuff.
That's awesome. Who's that cert through?
This is through Prescript.
Okay.
So
those are good. Great guys.
A lot of the good content that I've learned has come through Prescript. Just an excellent source of
I follow those guys. They're pretty awesome. Yeah,
100%. So
when I see their Instagram stuff, I'm like, yep, that makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of cutting edge technology and stuff. And some of it's going back to the, the roots, but a lot of it's hey, let's look at it at a different perspective.
I think at the end of the day, it all goes back to just there's a million different styles of how to do things, but the body kind of only works how it works. Muscle is only inserts one way, only originates one way. So understanding where a muscle attaches to, just basic stuff, understanding the origin insertions of these things and how we need to shorten a muscle, where the lengthened position of a muscle is versus the shortened, when we're going to train to lengthen versus a mid-range versus shorten, knowing how to kind of put these pieces together, I think are just
that's something
essential. Right?
That's something that I didn't even realize. And I think I've done it, but I just didn't know I was doing.
Right.
Things
all training is a form of these things, but I think knowing the nuances, and that's the same thing. Once I started training, everything was chest and tricep day, back and bicep day, and you skip legs.
Right.
You go back to chest and tri, right?
Skip legs.
Yeah, 100%. So everyone, we were all on that bro split, and I think as I became a trainer, I just started asking better questions, and I think that really helped me learn kind of what is important to me in a training session, and that just led me down rabbit hole after rabbit hole, trying to answer these questions, figure out what actually I'm trying to get out of a session, how to do that more effectively.
Sure.
And there's just...
I think I've always been like that too. I'm always wondering why a specific exercise or why like a rep range or whatever is in the program, and what the intent of it is supposed to be there. Is it just supposed to be extra movement, extra work, or are we trying to just, and it has to pair up with like the client or the athlete or whoever it is, which they can be a client too, but whatever their goals are, right? You can't just like program something and be like, here it is.
100%. Yeah, we can kind of break into a few things that you talked about. Rep ranges, right? So that's like kind of, if you figure out what you're doing, you kind of work backwards, figure out what the goal is, what the main work of the session is, you know, understanding how to kind of tailor everything. The rep ranges become pretty simple. Depending on what modality you're going to use, if it's a barbell, you're probably working between 1 to 8 reps.
Yeah.
If you're using dumbbells, you're probably working anywhere from 8 to maybe closer to 15 reps, closer to 20. If you're using cables, you're working 8 to 20 reps. Machines, kind of anywhere in that gray area. You could work machines low reps, high weight, or you can kind of push high reps. So the modality kind of dictates that. And then also shortened ranges are where we're weakest, right? Versus like a mid-range. Short range being like a high cable bicep curl. Mid-range for a bicep would be like a preacher curl.
Yeah.
Lengthened range would be an incline curl on a bench. So understanding like where we're weakest, okay, if we're weakest in the shortened, maybe we hit shortened range first. Yeah. And then we'll hit the lengthened range. For one, because we're weaker, easier to tax that position before we get into the lengthen. Also understanding that you can access that shortened position first. You won't have to access that as much when you're working through that lengthened position. So little things like that, understanding, you know, how to order a session appropriately. I think all these things kind of just answer themselves once you figure out step one, which is the goal, what the client actually wants.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, there's obviously things like if somebody has got injuries, mobility problems, whatever, you gotta, you know, curtail around those. Because like, just for an example, like for the longest time, a lunge would kill my knees and I could not do them. So it's like, how do you get the next best thing if we're trying to do something that a lunge would give you, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta work around those things as a coach, which is tough. Can be tough.
100%. I think breaking down the movement patterns as well. Like, what do you need? What is a lunge? A lunge is, you know, it's knee flexion, it's hip flexion, it's a unilateral movement. Okay, if we can't lunge, how can we regress that movement for you? Maybe we give you a dowel. Maybe we
put the foot up.
Yeah.
The foot elevated.
You can, elevate a foot. Maybe not elevate, get both your feet on the ground, go bilateral. So there's multiple things you can do to adjust that. Yeah, I think, you know, you can also curtail like the actual range of the movement. So like for me, it was hurting in the bottom, in the, you know, completely in the 90-degree position. Yeah. So don't go all the way down to where pain, you know, where it's gonna be painful, right? 100%.
Yeah. Do you have any like specialties that you say, like something that you just like really shine in, or is it kind of like a general broad spectrum?
In terms of my experience, I would say it dictates like my specialty, and that's just mainly working with people like a hypertrophy client or a strength client. Obviously, like a lot of clients come to you looking to like lose weight, which is kind of tailors in the whole thing. But just trying to get better in all aspects, whether it's nutrition. Recently took a course on that, whether it's the ins and outs, the science of hypertrophy, whether it's biomechanics. I'm just trying to be more well-rounded.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Cool. So depending on whoever walks in the door, I want to just be able to help people. So yeah,
that's cool. So I know we chatted a little bit about this, but let's go deeper into some programming. So just in your like capability in your range, if you had a client that was looking specifically to gain strength, like how do you pick that kind of programming? What would you really like? I know it's hard for each client to be like, here's a program or whatever. You got to like work with each individual, but like what do you find usually ends up in some of these programs that because there's only so many movements, right? Yeah. So each strength athlete has something different, but they all kind of have some similarities, I guess. What do you find like you are your go-to?
Okay, that's a good question, and I think there's so many ways to go about it. There are like boxes I think you should tick in everybody's program, no matter who you are, unless there's some huge, injury or movement capability that you're, unable to perform. But for most people, most of the time, like upper body session should have some shoulder flexion, some shoulder extension, so getting your shoulder through that total arc of range of motion. A leg day should probably have some knee flexion, some hip flexion, some knee extension, hip extension. So yeah, just making sure throughout the week all these boxes are ticked, whether it's making sure we're getting overhead range of motion. We're not just doing all our pressing work kind of in this 90-degree range. We're doing something overhead. Just making sure all these boxes are ticked. I think that a lot of problems stem from, we talked about it before, lack of intent in a program, or not having the proper exercise selection, having things in the wrong order, I think can make a huge difference, which just goes back to understanding, one, what the client needs, two, how you want to organize that session. But yeah, I think just ticking all these boxes, all the ranges of motion, whether all the planes, whether it's frontal plane, sagittal plane, transverse plane, most people are just stuck in the sagittal. They're doing everything on 2 feet. All their squats are bilateral. So definitely making sure we have unilateral work in. That's a big one that we talk about all the time, making sure you're doing something, some type of split stance work, whether it's a walking lunge to address gait cycle, front foot elevated, rear foot elevated squat, B stance, using a landmine to help you with a little stability if you need that in these unilateral movements, doing things like lateral lunges, get you in that frontal plane.
I think a lot of times, we get stuck in, especially with like heavyweight powerlifting. A lot of times these guys, these athletes, and even CrossFit and all these weightlifting, all that stuff, they all get the same. They get so much, they have to put in so much work once they get to a specific level, and including myself, and you said this to me the other day, it was like, don't call your accessories. They're part of the program, and they're in there for a reason. And for me, I'm like, man, I just got done deadlifting like freaking 600 pounds for multiple sets or whatever it is. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to do these. I'm putting half effort into these other things, and then it shows. It shows later, like over time, you find weaknesses, and you get into like, you can get into injuries and stuff.
Compensations, all that. And I think that, something we talk about all the time, having a program that addresses these things. Like for you, if you're at a point where you're getting so beat up from your main lifts that the rest of your program, which is most important for helping your main lift, if that is being affected, we need to, one, look at the program, two, look at how the exercise order is contributing to like the loading parameters. So if we're doing all our main lifts first, squat, bench, and dead is like our first exercise in all our programs. One, maybe we don't have like the space we need in our, we haven't opened up enough space in our work prior to get optimal movement out of our main lifts. And two, you're not really limiting any load. So like if you're feeling super beat up after 8 weeks of a block or whatever, maybe we front load your heavy squat day with a single leg squat. Maybe we throw RDLs in, and then maybe we have you front squat at the end of that day when you're a little bit more taxed, so the load will be lighter. You're still getting great output. The accessories are going to do nothing but help your main lifts at the end of the day. These variations are going to help your main lifts. I think maybe messing with the order of the programming to, constraints are the easiest way to limit load. Right? Another easy way to limit load is just moving the order of your main lifts around.
I think though, and when you're doing a program like a heavy weightlifting or heavy powerlifting or whatever, where you're doing the same movement and lots of reps, a lot of times we need the program and every exercise selection after that to be really optimized to dialing in the rest of those movements, because we don't have a lot of time. Like a main movement for me, a squat session or deadlift session or a bench session can take almost an hour for just that main movement. And that's a lot of time. Like I'm taxed by the time I'm done with that. So having exercise selection, I think, to be really intentful. This is why we're doing it, and this is why it's helping this, right? Afterwards. I think we talked about that.
I think
as well.
jump volume, most people just fill a program with volume when, for one, the movement quality isn't there, which is most important, right? So I choose volume. Once we can move more efficiently, that volume is like, it's just going to be too much. For me, if I hit 4 sets of bench press, followed by 4 sets of a cable press, followed by 4 sets of overhead. Like, I'm just going to be fried.
Yeah.
And I think the more proficient you begin to move in these movements, you don't need as much volume. 2 sets on some of these movements will be good enough to still progress. I think that newbies, people who are like newer in the gym, people that aren't as skilled at moving, you leak a lot of movement everywhere. You leak a lot of force everywhere, and those,
I call it spilling the horsepower.
Yeah, and those reps aren't as efficient. Maybe in 15 reps you're getting 6 or 7 that are actually dialed in. The rest aren't really doing as much, right? So,
and I think the biggest thing for me is, like, if I'm going to say work up to a 600-pound deadlift, like, there has to be multiple sets before that.
Yeah.
And then the top sets are like just a couple of sets, but then you back off and do a little bit more. So the volume is just horrendous. There's a ton of volume. Now, if you're only deadlifting like 300 pounds, the volume is way less because it takes you a few reps to get there. But like, I'm doing at least 135, 225, 315, 405, 495, 545, and 600. There's 7 sets before I even get to my top set.
Which also goes into better addressing what you're doing before that main lift. Like, I think your main lift, the first exercise you do of the day, not counting like your warm-up, your prep work, should kind of take a few warm-up sets, because you do need to like get that neurological stimulation of feeling the weight, of getting into the session, whatever. But the prep work leading to that main lift has to be dialed in. It has to be efficient. It can't just be dead bugs for 4 years, or a pullover every day, or cable external rotation. I've been doing this for 2 years because my PT said it's good for my shoulder. Like, all these things, just like our regular lifts, need to be progressed. And if your warm-up isn't being progressed effectively, you're probably doing, like you said, 7 sets before you get to your main working weight. That's just, to me, too much work. People like start with the bar. Like, for you, if you're benching 350, 400 pounds, whatever it is, starting with the bar is just like mind-boggling to me. Like, trust me, if you're a world record powerlifter and that's what you do and that's how you need to get into your set, do what you got to do.
I think, right? Just do it.
Don't let a trainer tell you not to like mess up your process. But if we can effectively get you warmed up in a more effective way, having better preps to get you into that main lift, by the time you get into it,
you should be doing like,
you should be good. You could throw a plate on and feel perfectly fine. For me, like, I could when I go to my bench session after my preps and I'm not benching 400 pounds, I throw a plate on and I feel fine. Like, I don't need to sit there with the bar and then throw 10s on and then throw 25s on. That just shows me what'd you do to get before you got to the bench. Clearly nothing, because you don't feel good enough to effectively warm up. So looking at your warm-ups, it's like, every block my warm-ups, unless they're like, some can be staples in your program forever. Some can be what we call like gatekeepers. Like, making sure you can effectively get into these ranges is all you really need to do for your warm-up. Once you know you can get there, I mean, you should be good to go, right? It's like people walk into the gym and be like, I gotta activate my glutes. Well, if you walked into the gym and your blood's flowing through your body, you have warm glutes. Trust me, your glutes are warm and they're active. I think,
they're at least body temperature, right?
Like, you're good. You just need to, there's just better ways of getting you primed for those main movements where we're not doing 7 sets to get warm. Right?
I mean, I think there's definitely, you have to have some kind of progression. You can't just like do some progression warm-ups, and then jump under 600 pounds.
You're not jumping into your working weight. You're working, especially your first exercise of the day, whatever that is, after your prep work. Like for a bench day, say you're doing, your kettlebell bombs up press, you're doing a arm bar, supine arm bar, then you're hitting a lat pullover, whatever it is. Then you're hitting your warm-up sets, maybe 2-3 warm-up sets, to get work up to your work. You always work up to that working weight. Once you're hitting that working weight. But like you said, 7 sets, that's probably excessive, and we could probably dial that down so that we're just getting a more effective workout. It's not taking you an hour to do your main. No matter how strong not always the case, but most of the time, an hour for like a bench day, just to get through the bench, that's a lot. Even if you're pushing heavy weight, we probably could have just
did a little bit more.
Maybe a more effective warm-up to get you primed for those working sets.
For sure. And, going back into some of this, like, having to intentfully look at the program. Like one of the things you showed me the other day was like the over cable bicep curl to open up space in the shoulder. That was really intentful, and I was like, okay, I'm working on my biceps as well as opening up the shoulder for getting ready for the bench press. So getting some range of motion, getting shoulder locked in with the scapulas and all that stuff, and then hitting the bicep thing was.
It's like we can do the cable external rotations till we're like totally sick of them.
Yeah.
Right. Like you see everybody do in the gym every day.
Yeah.
Or we can find a way to progress that. What are we looking? We're looking for external rotation of the shoulder. Okay, cool. Okay, we're a power lifter. Maybe we can add getting some bicep work in our prep, as well as getting some shoulders, stability out of our shoulder in a more overhead range.
Yeah.
And just more bang for your buck. You're getting arms. I think most of us would rather hit a gun run versus hitting a band external rotation in the corner, right?
Totally. So, I call out my old coach, Rick. He was so funny. I mean, he took on my coaching because I just asked him, and he wasn't really a programmer or a coach, but he used to program me like 3 sets of whatever, lifter's choice or arms of choice or shoulders of choice or whatever. I used to text him back and be like, dude, what kind of crap is this? Like, give me something more intentful. Like I'm just, I'm sitting here and like, I don't want to know. I don't want to have to like figure out what to do. Like just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Like why is this shoulder in there? Am I just going to do like a band warm up on my shoulder? Am I like, how do I do it? Right. So
I think
that was funny. I still mess with him today about that. I texted him just not too long ago. Like, hey, remember that 3 sets of whatever the hell you want to do?
Yeah, I think it goes back to intent. Every exercise in there needs to be in there for a purpose.
Yeah.
It needs to be where it's at in that day for a reason.
Yeah.
Also for people like you, like knowing what your client wants, they probably, for you, would rather get a little more bicep pump versus sitting there with a band for 30 minutes.
Yeah. And I've been doing it for a long time, so I do know what to do. But at the same time, like, if you've been in the industry for any time, any length of time, there's exercises that you once did that you forgot all about because something new came in, and you're like, you look at back at your program, you're like, oh crap, I totally forgot I did that. That was an awesome program. That was an awesome bicep curl or awesome shoulder pump or whatever.
For sure.
And so you get in your head and like, the other day I was doing some shoulder and arm stuff, and it was just me pumping the muscle up. That was pretty much the end of it, and there was no intent of it at all. And I know you were looking at me like, what the heck is this kid doing right now?
You got me giving you the side eye and the
side eye, like, you're all videoing me from the corner.
Yeah.
Gonna be on Jim Bales here shortly.
We've gone in on his training a bunch, and that's one thing I'm huge on. I think like you said, if you call your accessories, you're going to treat them that way. But that's 90% of your program. Your main lift is just your main lift. Everything else
should
contributes to that. And if it's not, like, what are you really doing? So
for sure.
I mean, that's just the way I look at things. I feel like it's my job to look at things that detailed.
And since you said that, like, I was like, crap, he's right. I was like, I have not been taking my accessories really seriously for some time because I'm smoked after the workout. A lot of the times my workouts are completely different time frames of the day, just depending on my schedule. And so I'm just like, I got an hour, let's get it in right now. And then by the time my main lift is done, I'm like, I got 15 minutes. Yeah. What can I get in intentfully to gain some more muscle or blood flow or whatever?
Yeah.
So that can be a contributing factor. But
looking at it, and so like, if you limit it on time,
so what I've been doing is if I'm like the other day I had to cut it short because somebody walked into the gym and it was like a new salesperson, a new person to potentially a client. So I was like, okay, I got to just cut my workout here. And I went back a few hours later and just finished up. But I had way more focus and intent than me just trying to finish up that last 5 minutes being like, here, quick, pump it out. I got 15 more reps.
Right.
Going back in there and doing that. So what's next for you? You got any plans on doing any powerlifting competitions?
Oh man, I finally put back squat back in my program once I started working here.
Yeah.
So I'm like working in a powerlifting gym. That might as well be something because, like I said, we've talked about it off air. I've hurt my back a few times, so I took back squat out, put front squat in for a while. Just wanted to really get as strong as I could at really just stabilizing that load.
Do you know what the front squat really does for me? It taxes my core so much, and I get like the craziest ab pump after like a set of front squats.
Because it's totally just that brace with your retraining, that completely stacked position.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people don't do it, just because they're hard and they suck.
Hard. Yeah, and so you sweat. Yeah, for sure.
But now doing those for a while, after implementing back squat now, like my back squat's way easier.
Yeah.
Soon. I think.
Soon?
Yeah.
All right.
I definitely want to dive into one.
That's awesome.
100%.
Have you been to one yet?
I've been to one. I haven't like competed
Okay.
in terms of powerlifting, but I've definitely been. I've been to one before.
You got to come to our July 29th one. It's here at the gym.
100%.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
I'll be there.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
Be there.
Well, you have anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners about you specifically and what you do?
Shoot, no, I feel like maybe we do this again. We could just talk a little more, but no, I appreciate you having me.
This spurs off a whole bunch of different,
Yeah, I feel like every time
holes.
we talk, it opens up a ton of different conversations. But yeah, if anyone wants to find me, Instagram _J Chandra. So it's _JChandra. It's my last name. You can find me there or pop in, say hi to Strength Warehouse. I'm always here.
Yeah, I was going to let you say your last name because I still can't get it.
Yeah, we butchered it last time, but it's all good.
Yeah, for sure.
No
all right, man. Well, cool. I really appreciate you coming in today and, giving our listeners something to think about and chew on a little bit. Cool, guys. Well, thanks a lot for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the other side.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us on this epic journey of strength. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review and share with a friend. To stay connected, hit that subscribe button. All right, until next time, go heavy or go home.